Welcome, Stephen. Go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you very much.
Go ahead.
Good evening. Good evening. Today I speak to you all, yes, as the education lead, but I'm also speaking as a former student in this board, a Black man in society, and a believer of Christ. I would like to begin my remarks by first addressing the hashtag Reclaim Our Voice forum that the Toronto Youth Cabinet released. Over a time span of 6 days, we heard from 25 TCDSB students from across the city, highlighting multiple separate instances of anti-Black and Indigenous racism being perpetuated not by only by students, but by staff. In reading their responses, I was disheartened but not shocked, because this sadly was the reality for myself and many past students. I heard from an Indigenous student who had a teacher who told the class to act out Indigenous ceremonies from the textbook. Now, the person had told the teacher that the text was wrong and disrespectful, but the teacher not only ignored, but insulted the student, indicating that she knew nothing about her own culture. Another story I heard was of a teacher who would ask the Indigenous student if they lived in a teepee and if the student owned moccasins, which the teacher referred to as, and I quote, little booties. We heard from Black students being singled out and told by teachers they'd never amount to anything, being called the N-word by teachers and students. One student reported being told by her science teacher to pursue a lower level class and not enter the medical field because, and I quote, you might get pregnant young. Many students continue to feel surveilled and criminalized by the presence of police in your schools, and this board in 2017 ignored those calls to remove police from schools, but this time must be different. Police have never and will never belong in our schools. The list goes on and on. I had over 50 students message me just about Notre Dame, Bishop Allen, and Loretto Abbey, and the repulsive events that have taken place. But I urge you to not lose sight that this is not just a couple of bad schools in the mix, but this is a racist system at work. And this board has been culpable in its complacency and its silence to dismantle the systemic racism that persists. Many students who wanted to speak today backed out last minute. They all cited the backlash they would face by school staff. This toxic culture that exists is not only misaligned with the values of the Lord and the fruits of the Spirit, but it has caused the most marginalized voices to be further silenced by putting the fear of reprimand and punishment to them. The fact that students are unable to speak out and shed light on the racism that they experience is dangerous. This board has functioned in a way where racist individuals are protected and not held to account, and the victims are scolded. The long calls for systemic change in this board can no longer be ignored. We are demanding action and accountability, and we will accept nothing less. Your platitudes are matched with inaction, and it has contributed to many negative outcomes for BIPOC students. It would be morally, ethically, and spiritually wrong for members of this board to vote no to these motions being presented to you today. It would be in the best interest of the TCDSB community to take the bold approach in that, yes, this is an uncomfortable conversation to have, but nonetheless, it is a necessary one. Now, I hope the Lord touches your hearts and minds and causes you all to vote in favor of this motion. Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you. Thank you, Stephen. Trustee Di Pasquale.